Welcome back to the Word Podcast. I'm Julian Spivey, the editor and writer, publisher of the Word webzine, and I'm happy to be joined by my guest, Eric Fulton, today. You've heard Eric before. He joined us on one of our first podcasts when we talked about the Major League Baseball season preview, and today we want to talk about some NBA stuff. This has been the craziest NBA offseason that probably ever, and there's been some huge stories, one of which is, of course, the recent trade from the Oklahoma City Thunder to the Houston Rockets of Russell Westbrook and how he's going to do with James Harden. And then you have Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant teaming up with the Brooklyn Nets. But I think that the most interesting story of the offseason has been what's going on in Los Angeles. You have the trade of Anthony Davis from the New Orleans Pelicans to the Lakers. The Lakers sent some of their young guys like Lonzo Ball to New Orleans in that deal. And then kind of after the frenzy of the first day of free agency, a few days later, the Los Angeles Clippers signed who was considered the top free agent this offseason, Kawhi Leonard, who of course just won an NBA Finals MVP, the second of his career, with the Toronto Raptors, leading them to their first championship in franchise history. Eric, thanks for joining me. Do you have anything to say first?
I will agree that this was the craziest offseason in the history of the NBA. I mean, it was about a month of people signing where and things like that.
Most of it happened on one day.
And it's just like, all of these players moving. I mean, there's a huge game-changing moves that is going to dictate what's to come for the 2019-2020 NBA season. I, for one, am very excited.
I think that the offseason has got the majority of NBA fans more excited for the next season. You don't really have the one super team in Golden State anymore. Now you have, which looks like could be 4, 5, 6 really great teams in the NBA. Now, of course, I think that the NBA is more top-heavy now than it's ever been. I think you're going to see about 6 teams that have a shot at the championship, and then everybody else is going to be fairly bad. But it means that the regular season has more interest now that there are this many good teams, and then the playoffs, especially later on in the playoffs, should have more interest. But like I said, the biggest story for me, at least, is the two teams in Los Angeles. Basically, we're going to have a battle for L.A. I would say the battle of the Staples Center, but isn't this the first year that the Clippers are going to be in their new home?
No.
Are they still going to be?
They're still going to be in the Staples Center.
Okay, well, that makes it even more interesting. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about which team we think is going to be better. The Los Angeles Lakers, who've owned L.A. ever since they moved there from Minneapolis a long time ago. And then the Clippers, who have been the better team most frequently of the last decade in Los Angeles, but for years were just kind of the second-tier team in the city. So who's going to basically own Los Angeles in the NBA this year? Now, it wouldn't surprise me if these two teams end up being the top 2 in the Western Conference. But Eric and I are going to go through this position by position in the starting lineup for each of the Lakers and Clippers and determine where we think they have the better players or the momentum, and then we'll talk about the bench as a whole. And when these deals went down, without actually looking into the roster 1 through 12, I kind of thought that the Clippers might not have the best starting lineup, but would have the better overall team. But when I did some research in this, I'm not sure that's the case. But let's break this down position by position, and we'll start with point guard. And what's most interesting to me is that the Lakers and LeBron James have come out recently and said LeBron James is going to be the Lakers' point guard this year. Does that surprise you at first?
It kind of did a little bit, but then you also have to look at the fact you're like, the Lakers did add Jason Kidd, one of the greatest point guards of all time, to be an assistant coach. Now, under new head coach Frank Vogel. Now, bold prediction, if the Lakers really do struggle out of the gate, I think Jason Kidd's going to end up being the head coach.
Yeah, that would not surprise me. It would be a quick leash with Vogel, but he was somewhat of a surprising choice to be their coach anyway. I know LeBron wanted Ty Lue, his old coach with the Cavaliers, and things just broke down between the franchise and Lue, and they settled on Vogel, who's been the coach before of the Indiana Pacers, had success there, and not so much success in his last job with the Orlando Magic. So LeBron James averaged 27 points last year, which was actually a little bit right there with his career average. 9 rebounds, 8 assists. I'm not sure he'll average that many points this year with Anthony Davis taking some of the baskets. And Kyle Kuzma could be around 20 points himself a game. But it doesn't really matter who the Clippers throw out there at point guard because LeBron James is going to have the advantage over him. But the Clippers will return Patrick Beverley, who re-signed as a free agent this offseason, as their point guard. And he only averages about 8 points per game, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. But his tenacity is what makes him such an important player for the Clippers. And if he can hound LeBron James in their head-to-head matchups during the regular season, or if they meet in the playoffs, which I'm sure a lot of us would want to see excitement-wise, I think that will be a huge matchup defensively. Do you have anything to say about Beverly?
I like Beverly as
he's just one of those. He's just a hound.
I mean, he's a hound. He's a great defender. One of the best defensive players in the game.
We saw he was able to get into Kevin Durant's head a little bit in that series this past postseason, at least at the start.
Easily. I mean, the Clippers gone 7, I think the Clippers would have beaten the Warriors.
The Clippers really pushed the Warriors to the brink in that postseason, and they've definitely gotten even better this offseason, so it should be interesting. But we're definitely going to give LeBron the win here when it comes to the 2-point guards. The Lakers have 3 new starting players in their lineup this year, and one of them is their 2-guard, Danny Green, who's coming over from the champion Toronto Raptors. Danny Green is a guy who I think would be more suited to coming off the bench for a team this good, but the fact that they have one of the best 3-point shooters of all time at this position is really going to help them out a lot, especially when it comes to the postseason. But kind of like what it was at a point guard, the Clippers, and what was one of the real shocks of the offseason, acquiring Paul George from the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, this is a guy who almost won MVP last year. He probably would have been the third favorite behind Giannis Antetokounmpo, who won it for the Bucks, and James Harden, who won it 2 years ago for the Rockets. But, man, he had a great season, a career season, really, averaging 28 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. So he's obviously going to be the better of these two, giving the Clippers a really maybe the best 1-2 punch in the NBA, but the addition of Green is really going to be big for 3-point shooting wise, which has been huge in the NBA the last few years. Do you have anything to add about George?
I will agree.
Green?
I will agree with Paul George. I mean, the Clippers have not one but 2 of the best 2-way players in the game with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard.
Throw Patrick Beverley's defense in there, Montrezl Harrell. You're going to have a very good defensive team. I think that there's no doubt that the Clippers should be the best defensive team in the NBA this year. Let's go to the centers. Last year, the Clippers made a small trade with the Lakers to get them, and I hope I'm pronouncing this first name right, Ivica Zubac, and he's going to be their starting center, and he looked really good against the Warriors in that postseason. That's really the only time I've really seen Zubac play much, but he was averaging almost 10 points a game and 6 rebounds for the Clippers. And then the Lakers have a new center this year. They signed DeMarcus Cousins to a 1-year deal. He was kind of on a 1-year prove-himself deal with the Warriors last year, played about half a season, looked pretty good. He averaged 16 points, 8 rebounds in that half season, got hurt in the playoffs, and then didn't look so good when he returned to the NBA Finals. But he's kind of on another 1-year prove-himself deal to see if he can make more money after this year, even though he's getting older. This is probably the closest one of all the starting lineups, but I'm willing to give Cousins the benefit of the doubt because of what he's done in the past, and I'll say that the Lakers have the advantage at center. What do you think, Eric?
Oh, man, I mean, I'm really interested to see what Zubac can do as a starting center. He did pretty well with the Lakers before the trade.
That was kind of a steal of a deal for the Clippers.
I
bet the Lakers are regretting that right now.
Jerry West did it again. He this is perhaps one of the greatest front office personnel in the history of sports. When we talk about the legacy that he has built, and I mean, even a trade like Zubac. I mean, who knew that it could work? DeMarcus Cousins, to me, a couple years ago, he tore his Achilles when he was teammates with Anthony Davis in the Pelicans. I think that he could very well do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Not injure himself, but I think he could play very well. I'm going to give the slight edge to Cousins. I mean, this one, I agree with you. This one could be a toss-up. I think Zubac can play very well for the Clippers, but I think Cousins is on that once again to prove himself in the league.
Yeah, it's kind of an unproven situation here because we don't know what kind of Cousins we're going to get. And honestly, he's only going to be the top scoring option for this Lakers team. And we're still kind of learning about Zubac. So it's kind of a toss-up here. But like I said, I will give the edge to Cousins. Power forward is an interesting one. I'm definitely going to give the edge to Anthony Davis, the perennial all-star, and a guy who people have been thinking would win an MVP for some time now and probably has his best chance coming up this season. But Montrezl Harrell, who actually came off the bench for the Clippers last year, is going to move into the starting rotation. And he averaged 17.7 rebounds last year and really was impressive. And I think he'll just be even better at a starting lineup that features Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and is a really good third scoring option for the Clippers. But again, Anthony Davis, and I apologize if y'all can hear my dog barking in the background, but Anthony Davis, I think, is going to, if he can stay healthy, which has always been a question in his career, is going to have maybe his best season of all time. Now, there's no doubt he's second fiddle to LeBron James on this team, but it would not surprise me if he actually ends up scoring more points per game than James, especially with James moving over to the point guard position. I think we're going to see kind of a new Lob City in Los Angeles with the Lakers this time. What do you think about the addition of Anthony Davis, and do you think, like I do, that he may actually be the leading scorer on the team?
Surprisingly, I do think that he's going to be the leading scorer on the team. I think that it'll be very interesting to see what LeBron and Anthony Davis can do. I think that LeBron has always wanted a guy like Anthony Davis for years.
This will be, no offense to Kyrie Irving, but this will be the best player LeBron's had with him since Dwayne Wade in Miami.
I would agree. Nothing against Kyrie Irving. I mean, Kyrie Irving is a great player in his own right, but it's amazing how really things kind of just ended with a mess between LeBron and Kyrie. And I think that really both LeBron and Kyrie haven't really benefited since. But now that Anthony Davis has come into the picture, I think that he's going to take he's going to take a load off a little bit from LeBron and really help. So I'm going to give Davis the edge over Harrell, but I think Harrell can be a very good power forward.
Yes, and as the third, actually probably fourth scoring option for the Clippers, because they do have Lou Williams on the bench. We'll get to that in a bit. He's just going to be he was their second top scoring option last year, so it'll just make him more of a role player. He reminded me, especially in the postseason against the Warriors, and again, we'll keep bringing them up because the Clippers really impressed against Golden State last postseason. He reminded me of a Draymond Green type player, except he scored more. Now that he's got all these scoring options with him, I think he's going to meld even more into that Draymond Green type player, where he's just going to be tenacious. He's going to be grabbing rebounds, blocking shots. He's just going to be an important player. But a little bit back to Anthony Davis. A lot in the NBA you hear about, are two superstars going to work out together on a team? That's basically all you've heard about with the Rockets since they acquired Russell Westbrook a couple weeks ago. But it just doesn't feel like there's going to be an issue between LeBron and Anthony Davis with this team. We know it's LeBron's team. And we know how much LeBron wanted Anthony Davis to join him on this team. We've been talking about this for over a year now. So I think that it's going to be, no matter who scores the most points between the two, I think it's definitely going to work out. And again, it should work out fairly well with the Clippers having two stars in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, because those are just guys who don't seem to really be the kind of me-first guys, kind of like a Russ Westbrook. It just seems like those guys are going to work out. Well, we've already given the Lakers 3 of the 4 starters the advantage so far. We're going to go to small forward now, and the advantage is clearly going to go to the Clippers with the addition of Kawhi Leonard, who averaged 27 points a game last year for the Raptors, and of course plays some of the best defense in the NBA. But Kyle Kuzma keeps impressing, and he should only get better for the Lakers. And now he's going to be their third scoring option instead of their second one. But he averaged 19 points per game for the Lakers last year. I think he could still be around that, even though he's only their third scoring option. What do you have to add with Kawhi and Kuzma?
I think that, to me, I kind of, everyone was, there are a lot of people saying, oh, he's 95.6%. I mean, a lot of say, oh, Kawhi's going to the Lakers. I think that he was going to go to the Clippers regardless if they had gone, regardless if they were going to get a second star, superstar or not, because I couldn't see Kawhi and Anthony Davis and LeBron James all on the same team.
Yeah, I couldn't see that either. And it's best for the NBA that didn't work out, because then we would have just had another super team, but it would have been on the other team in Los Angeles. And I say another super team, and I don't, kind of one of my things of the last years is I don't really like, even though they had 4 All-Stars, I didn't really like calling the Warriors a super team because it was mostly done through the draft and then they added one free agent. I think to really form a super team, you kind of have to do it other ways besides through the draft, but that's kind of off the topic. We just keep calling teams super teams. I know a lot of people consider the Warriors to be that, but the Lakers truly would have been a super team.
Yeah,
in the kind of example of the Heat from when LeBron and Bosh teamed up with Dwayne Wade many years ago. Do you have anything to add about Kuzma, though?
I like the fact that the Lakers were able to do the deal with the
without
Pelicans,
trading him, yes.
and without trading Kuzma, because I think a lot of the Pelicans would have easily wanted Kuzma, but but this was kind of a win for the Lakers, not just to, not getting the addition of Anthony Davis, but somehow keeping Kuzma. And, it's not a bad deal at all when you look at, okay, they wanted, at first they wanted Kuzma, but then New Orleans backed off and said, okay, we're good with Ingram and Ball and Josh Hart. I think that Kuzma will be I agree that he's going to be the third leading scorer on that team, and the Lakers going to have a lot, you're going to have 2 guys that are going to average maybe 25 or more, and then Kuzma's going to be close to 20.
Yeah, you got to figure that LeBron and Anthony Davis are going to give you almost 50 a night. So, I mean, you're not going to have to score too much from the other 3 guys and your bench to really, put away teams. Before we get to the benches of these 2 teams, I want to talk about the best 1-2, because we have 2 All-Star 1-2s now. Do the Lakers have the better 1-2 with LeBron and Anthony Davis, or do the Clippers actually have the better 1-2 with the additions of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George?
It's a toss-up, and I'm going with the Clippers because, again, you talking about Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, you're talking about guys that can get it done not just on the offensive end, but they can get it done on the defensive end. This is a Doc Rivers, grind them out, grind everything you got in four quarters, maybe more, type of team that, like we said earlier, that gave the Warriors fits in the first round, and that was against a healthy Warriors team. That was when the Warriors were at their healthiest. So I mean, with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and Doc Rivers, who's easily the best coach. One of the best coaches in the league, period. This team is going to be Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, best 1-2 punch with the better coach. That is scary.
I agree with everything you just said, which may be a surprise to some listeners, because LeBron James and Anthony Davis have been considered 2 of the top 5 best players in the NBA for a long time now. But I do agree with you because of what you said with the defense. They're great 1-2 players. And last year, Paul George, like I said, was probably the 3rd guy in the MVP hunt. And then you have Kawhi Leonard, who, when he was healthy in the postseason last year, just looked unbeatable. So, yeah, I'm going to agree with you and say that the Clippers actually have the better 1-2. But we gave the Lakers the position advantage 3-5. I mean 3-2 out of the 5. Best point guard, best center, which was a toss up, and best power forward. Do the Lakers actually have the better starting 5?
I have to go with the Clippers.
Really, I'm actually going to go with the Lakers here because of we don't know what Zubac is going to give.
We don't know.
Beverly and Green can kind of be a toss up too. But I do think that the Lakers will have the better starting 5, but just barely. But tell me why you think the Clippers. Is it just because the top
I think
two?
Not just with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Yeah, Patrick Beverly isn't going to score more points than LeBron per game, obviously. But again, you look at Beverly, you look at Zubac, you look at Harrell. They don't have to score a whole lot of points because they're going to have they're not going to just have a strong bench. They're going to have guys that will, play both ways. I mean, they're going to have a strong defense. Yeah, sure, some of their points per game will be going down, but they can, this is a team that can set up to not only win games on the offensive side, they're going to set up to win games on the defensive end.
Yeah. One thing I did want to add that I forgot when we were talking about the best two, another reason why I went with the Clippers is Kawhi Leonard and LeBron James, their numbers are similar, but Kawhi Leonard is younger. You have to expect him to be a little healthier probably, so that was part of that too. But let's get to the benches right now. Now, the Clippers have the best bench player in the entire NBA, maybe the best sixth man in the history of the NBA.
Yeah.
His 3 Sixth Man of the Year awards are tied with Jamal Crawford for the most of all time. He's too good to be on the bench, honestly, but that they like having that. Honestly, he probably should be the starting point guard, but they like having that intensity and that scoring option off the bench. He scored 20 points for them, was their leading scorer off the bench last year. But other than Lou Williams on the Clippers bench, it's a complete question mark to me. They had some good numbers off the bench from JaMychal Green, Landry Shamet, Mo Harkless, but I don't know. You got rookie Mfiondu Kabengele. I hope that's the right pronunciation. Probably not. You just don't really know what you're going to get there other than Lou Williams. The Lakers have an old bench, though, so that's kind of a question mark, too. You got Rajon Rondo still in the league.
Yeah.
Was their starting point guard for part of last year. Was looking like he was probably going to be their starting one this year until they signed Danny Green and moved LeBron to the point. You have Avery Bradley, who can score off the bench, plays good defense. Contavious Caldwell Pope, one of the guys remaining from last year, scored 11 points per game for them. Can score off the bench. You have JaVale McGee, who was their starting center last year. Probably not the guy you want as your starting center, but has a lot of playoff history, championships with the Golden State Warriors, and is a good guy to have coming off the bench to give DeMarcus Cousins some rest. And then you have Quinn Cook, who they signed, who's been Stephen Curry's backup for a couple of years in Golden State, and he's really the third point guard now with LeBron playing point guard on their depth chart, but he should definitely be able to spell some guys, some of the older guys, and shoot the three when he's in. Like I said, the Clippers have the best bench player. You can't argue that. But I think that the Lakers, even though they have the older bench, will maybe have the better bench this year. What do you think?
I will agree with everything. I do agree that Lou Williams is the best six-man player by far.
He would be starting on most teams.
And yeah, he would be starting on just about almost every team in the league right now. But when you look at overall bench for the Lakers, you've got championship experience from Rondo, Cook, McGee. Jared Dudley is
Green.
You
Not
got
on the bench, but we're talking about the whole team. There's a lot of guys who've won
Jared
titles
Dudley.
Jared Dudley, who I forgot to mention, I watched him with the Brooklyn Nets in the playoffs last season, and that guy is a nuisance. But like Patrick Beverly on the Clippers, he could be a good kind of nuisance to have, especially when it comes postseason time.
So, and I give Lakers GM Rob Pelinka a lot of credit after they didn't get Kawhi. I mean, they basically signed everybody on their bench the very next day. And
they basically, right after that, they made their bench. And that is the point of which I think that the Lakers became a completely better, not completely, but a complete team, more of a complete team than the Clippers. Now, Do you think that, though? Do you still think that they have the better bench, or do you want to say that Lou Williams gives the Clippers that much of an advantage?
I still think the Lakers have the better bench overall. You know, I like Lou Williams, and Mo Harkless, I think. But I think right now the Clippers run 7 deep. The Lakers can run 10 to 12 deep.
Yeah.
And really, those bench guys are probably going to be starting more for the Lakers. You know, I think more than what people will say during the season.
The Lakers 10 to 12 deep looks to me like the Warriors of the last few years. Now, I don't mean that they're going to play like the Warriors. They're not going to be as reliant on the three, etc. And they may not even be as good as the Warriors have been with 3 championships in 5 years. But, man, the great thing about Golden State winning their championships is you'd have Andre Iguodala come in off the bench, can start when you needed him. You'd have Sean Livingston come off the bench. You'd have all these great guys come off the bench, JaVale McGee, Quinn Cook, 2 guys who are now with the Lakers. And it just, it didn't matter who you threw in there. It seemed that they could score you buckets and play big minutes. I'm saying that the Los Angeles Lakers have the best team. I thought they have the best starting lineup. I think that they have the best bench. You said the Clippers have the best starting lineup, but you're going to give the Lakers barely an edge on the bench.
I'm giving them fairly an edge, but I think, like I said, I think all the guys that are on the Clippers, they're going to thrive under Doc Rivers. I think Doc Rivers.
I do think that the Clippers have the coach advantage.
Yeah, the Clippers have the coaching advantage.
If Doc Rivers has been one of the best coaches in the league for his entire career, all that's keeping him from legendary status is, I think, winning another title, and then doing it with another team would be good. So
if he can do it with the Clippers. I mean,
he may be a Hall of Famer already, but I think he should probably be in
the maybe almost the Phil Jackson, Greg Popovich area. I mean, Steve Kerr's obviously he's right there too.
Okay, let's discuss who we think is going to be the better of these teams now that we've broken down them by position. I think that both teams are going to win to the mid-60s, high 60s games. Which a lot. I mean, the record for most is 73. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a lot of games to win. I think that the Lakers will win 1 or 2 more regular season games than the Clippers, and I expect the Lakers to go further in the postseason. And I think that they'll be the best team in the West, because I do think these are probably the best 2 teams in the Western Conference. So I think the Lakers will be the Western Conference team, even though they missed playoffs last year, come next year's NBA Finals. Where do you see these 2 teams win-wise, and which one will have more wins and go further?
Like I said, I'm going to, as far as the coaching advantage, I am going to give Doc Rivers and the Clippers an advantage, which therefore means I'm going to give the Clippers the better record over the Lakers. I think, now, let's keep in mind now, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are not going to play the full 82.
Yeah.
We're
getting to the point in the NBA where, and they're talking about lessening the games in the season, they may have to, but we're getting to the point where, what's the term they used with Kawhi last year? It wasn't
load management.
Load management. That's what you're going to hear a lot about in the NBA this year. So.
And the Lakers are going to do the same. I mean, LeBron and AD aren't going to play 82 as well. They're going to load manage them too as well. I know LeBron missed, I think, 6 weeks with a groin issue that started Christmas Day at the Warriors, and Anthony Davis missed a lot of time with the Pelicans last year after his trade announcement. And fun fact quickly, we had a fantasy basketball league in which you gave me Anthony Davis, and I lost Nikola Jokic, who was one of the top 5 finalists in the NBA, which basically changed our seasons.
Yeah.
I think you finished second, I finished 5th overall in our fantasy basketball league this year. I regret that trade, by the way.
Yeah, that was not the best deal on your part.
No.
But so we're kind of in agreement about a lot of this. But where we differ is, I barely have the Lakers as the better team, and you seem to barely have the Clippers as the better team.
I have the Clippers barely than I do over the Lakers, but
And I think a lot of people are. I think I'm kind of happy. We didn't go over this before the podcast today. I'm kind of happy that we're split because I think that most NBA fans are going to be split on this topic, which is why I wanted to do this topic. Which is why this is the story of the NBA offseason to me, even more so than what Brooklyn did or Russ Westbrook going to Houston
or even Utah. Like
yeah.
I
They're
like,
gonna be a good team too, though.
I like Utah's team. I like the Rockets team. I mean, the West is just going to be ridiculously good. I like what the Pelicans did, not just with adding Zion Williamson, but they got guys like JJ Redick. They added guys like Hard and Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Derek Favors from the Jazz. I mean, the Pels, if they were in the East, they would easily make the playoffs. But because they're in the West and the West is too good, I don't see a team like the Pelicans make the playoffs this year. Definitely next year, because I think got teams like maybe, I don't know, Portland or one of those teams could probably be out of the playoffs.
Yeah, easily. So I can't wait for the NBA season. The fall needs to hurry up and get here because the Battle of Los Angeles is going to be so fun this season. I'd like to thank Eric for joining me today. I know we'll see him again in the future. Anytime I have a sports topic I want to discuss on the Word Podcast, he's my go-to guy. Follow us, our website at thewordwebzine.weebly.com. You can follow us at both Facebook and Twitter at The Word Webzine. I want to thank you for listening again. You can find us on Spotify, Amazon, Anchor, pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. Like us, leave us a review. Thanks for listening.